Welcome to this explainer. Come on in, grab a seat. I want you to imagine we've just closed my office door and we're sitting down for a frank, high-level strategy session. I'll be playing the role of a seasoned family lawyer today because honestly, when it comes to the 2026 Ontario Child Support Guidelines, especially the high-conflict financial scenarios, you've got to look at the numbers through a really strategic lens. We aren't just going to sit here and read a tax table. We're going to break down how these calculations actually play out in the real world, where the hidden pitfalls are, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself.
But right off the bat, before we get into the weeds, I need to state a really crucial disclaimer. Olanur is a free AI lawyer matching platform, okay? We're not a legal advisor. The insights in this explainer are purely for informational purposes. Every single family law case is completely unique, and if you are dealing with a complex financial dispute, I strongly encourage you to head over to olanur.com to find a pre-vetted, qualified lawyer for your specific issue. We can find you the right lawyer in minutes, and the matching service is completely free of charge.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today's explainer. First, the basic table amount. Second, Section 7 extraordinary expenses. Third, shared and split parenting. Fourth, self-employment and hidden income. And finally, when you need a lawyer.
Section 1, the basic table amount, which we can call the floor.
Now, this is usually the easiest part of the calculation because it's meant to be highly predictable. It boils down almost entirely to the paying parent's gross annual income. Under the current 2025 federal child support tables for Ontario, there's an absolute income floor, and that number is exactly $16,000. Basically, if a paying parent makes $16,000 a year or less, the basic table amount is exactly zero. But once you cross above that line, the required monthly amount starts to climb.
And notice just how concrete these numbers actually are. Let's say a paying parent earns $60,000. They owe $554 a month for one child, $911 for two, and $1,182 for three. Jump that income up to $100,000, and now you're looking at $932, $1,517, and $1,984. These are completely unnegotiable starting points pulled straight from line 1500 of the payer's tax return, right before any deductions. It doesn't even matter if you are married or common law. Ontario adopts these exact same federal tables for unmarried parents too. But, and this is a massive but, this is only your baseline.
All right, Section 2. Section 7, extraordinary expenses, or the extras.
So that basic table amount we just went over, it really only covers a child's ordinary day-to-day costs. It completely ignores the big-ticket items, and that's exactly where Section 7 of the guidelines comes in. These extras include things like daycare, so a parent can actually go to work, orthodontics, post-secondary tuition, and competitive sports. But here's the thing, these aren't just automatically added on. A court will only include them if they're considered reasonable given the family's overall means and, crucially, their spending habits before the separation. If your kid was never enrolled in elite private hockey before you split, you can't suddenly demand your ex pay for it now.
So how are these extra costs actually paid? Well, they're split proportionately based on income. Let's look at a great example from the source material. Imagine a couple in Ottawa where one parent makes $95,000 and the other makes $55,000. Combined, that's $150,000. The higher earner makes roughly 63% of that total household income. So if the kid needs a $6,000 set of braces, you don't just split that bill 50-50. The higher earner pays 63%, which is about $3,800, and the other parent pays the remaining 37%. This gets paid completely separate from and on top of that basic monthly table amount.
Section 3, shared and split parenting, the time factor.
I always warn my clients about this. Parenting time is where the math fundamentally changes, and it's exactly where the negotiations heat up. That simple lookup table we talked about, that assumes the child lives primarily with one parent. When that isn't the case, the whole system shifts. The critical point to remember is the 40% threshold. If a child is with one parent primarily, which is Section 3, the paying parent just pays the full table amount. But the second each parent has the children at least 40% of the time over the course of the year, you enter Section 9, shared parenting. Hitting that 40% mark literally throws the straight table amount right out the window because the law recognizes you're now running two fully operational households.
In a shared parenting situation, your usual starting point is called a set-off calculation. Basically, you calculate what each parent would owe if they were the payer, and the higher earner pays the difference. Let's bring back our Ottawa parents with 3 kids. At $95,000, the table amount is $1,890. At $55,000, it's $1,085. You offset those two numbers, and you reach a starting difference of $805 a month. But listen closely. The Supreme Court has made it very clear that this is just a starting point. The final number can be heavily argued based on the actual costs of running those two separate homes.
Section 4. Self-employment and hidden income. The battleground.
Make absolutely no mistake, this is the real battleground. If you take away anything from this explainer today, let it be this. If your ex is self-employed, professional legal scrutiny is absolutely required. For a standard salaried employee, gross income is simple. But for a parent who runs a business or gets paid in dividends, working out their real income is incredibly complex. The guidelines actually allow courts to aggressively adjust child support if they detect any tricky tax planning. They're going to look at a business owner's tax return and ask, is that company car really 100% for the business? Are those travel expenses legitimate? Courts can, and absolutely will, add back personal benefits or unreasonable business deductions to reach a fairer, much higher income available for child support.
So I have to ask you directly, is your co-parent hiding income behind a business? Because if they're reporting a tiny net income but living a luxurious lifestyle, you are leaving money on the table. And this also applies if the paying parent earns over $150,000. Under Section 4 of the guidelines, any income over that $150K threshold is completely open to judicial adjustment. These are intensely fact-heavy arguments, and they are totally ripe for major dispute.
Section 5. When you need a lawyer. Strategic counsel.
Look, navigating an amicable split with straightforward T4 incomes is one thing, but walking into a high-conflict financial scenario without strategic counsel is frankly a massive strategic error. Watch out for these major red flags. If your ex is self-employed or paid in dividends, if your parenting time is hovering right around that 40% cliff, if there are huge Section 7 costs like private school, if the payer earns over $150,000, or if you suspect they're hiding income. Also, if you need to enforce a private agreement through the Family Responsibility Office, the FRO, because payments have stopped. If literally any of these apply to you, getting professional legal advice is absolutely non-negotiable.
And that is exactly where Olanur steps in, to take the guesswork completely out of the process. Like we mentioned at the start, Olanur is an AI matching platform designed to connect you instantly with the right representation. Step 1, you just describe your specific high-conflict scenario on the platform. Step 2, you get matched with a verified Ontario family lawyer in minutes, specifically someone who knows exactly how to pressure test those tricky self-employed incomes. Step 3, you secure your free initial review. No cold calling, no guesswork, just straight to the right professional.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought before we wrap up. Are you absolutely certain that the financial inputs in your child support calculation are actually accurate? Because that whole table system, it only works if the income and the time inputted are truthful. Please don't guess. Protect yourself, verify your numbers, and get the strategic legal counsel you deserve. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. I really hope it provided some serious clarity on the financial battlefield of child support.